So Nate, thank you so much for having me back on your farm. Last time when we were here in the spring, we just shot that great video about your like very large Hügelkultur deployment.
Hmm.
Would you give us a reminder of the size and general dimensions of the Hügelkultur deployment?
Yeah, it's like 6,300 square feet, and it's just a small flat area. The mounds or the hills run from 25 feet up to 75 feet long,
Mm-hmm.
and they're about 5 feet wide,
Right
something
on.
like that, with a 2 foot walkway in between. So,
Yeah, there's no walkway anymore.
right, yeah, it's a little filled in.
So when we talked to you in the spring, this was the R&D part of your property. You've got your proper greenhouses where you do other kinds of living soil, probiotic, and KNF growing.
Yeah,
But Hügelkultur was like in your heart, right? And
yeah,
so you wanted to do this year and just kind of see, how it went. And when we last talked, a lot of your concern was whether or not the immaturity of the Hügelkultur, because you had just built them,
hmm,
was going to impact the flower and whether or not you were going to get any yield. I've seen them, but I'll let you go ahead and say it. So how did you have some success?
yeah. I think we did. It's good to go down and see the plants happy and have some nice big buds on there. It wasn't always like that. We had some issues along the way with drought. I would say it was probably the biggest thing that we had hit our plants. As we were digging these hugel mounds out, we actually decided to excavate down into the ground a little bit. When we started, all of our material was saturated, completely wet, but this took a lot longer than we thought to get it all done. And as we were digging out, refilling, spreading out the materials, they were drying out. And as we got to the very last one, or it was actually the second to last one, we deemed it to be a little too much of a burden to try and get it wet enough to plant into it. So we cut it short on the last one. We're going to try and get it all dug out here before the rain hits, after we harvest here, and get that one in. So, yeah.
So if you had this kind of drought condition because you started with the materials wet, but
Hmm.
before you could get them in the Hugel hole, they got dry, and so
Yeah.
you were essentially packing dry holes.
Hmm.
I would think that you probably took water and just drenched the hell out of them. Was that your first line of defense on
Yeah,
that?
it was. Going into this whole thing, it's the water conservation is the idea behind it, and the fact that you're gonna have these really big, deep, nutrient-rich beds full of microbiology. But it wasn't the case going into this first year. It was dry, unworkable,
No.
sticks, and you could see it in the plants as the time went on. In the early stages, they seemed like they maybe kind of bottomed out a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe weren't growing as fast as they should. A lot of yellow leaf from drought conditions. So it wasn't all easy, but actually none of it was easy. But every year moving forward is going to be much easier because of what we did this year. So we're excited about that.
So we were talking about how you were gonna, as you are both a cannabis farmer and also very much a business owner, and you feel that no more than this year, right? Ever
Mm-hmm.
before. And you were talking about like, okay, you've got your regular greenhouses, and you were going to devote X variable of resources to this R&D project in the Hugel beds. But
Mm-hmm.
actually ended up being quite a bit of resources to dig out the holes and fill them and
Yeah.
plant the whole thing. And you were just like, I'm okay with Hugel cultures for the future, but it'd be really great to get enough abundant crop to
Mm-hmm.
make this worthwhile and to at least be in the black for the year, right? On that growing area.
Totally.
Would you say that you have got an abundant enough of a crop where it was worth the overall effort?
I think so. Yeah. It's time will tell. We have a week or so left to harvest. We're just getting ready to start to pull the first ones down. It's probably going to be 2 weeks before the last ones come down. So we'll have a better idea then. But I think we're going to be somewhere around 60% of our typical yield.
Mm-hmm.
Just a ballpark in my head, but Yeah.
I wouldn't say that the youth of the Hugel cultures necessarily impacted the plants. I mean, there are certainly some things that you may want to do different and better as you make your best practices, but we were seeing colas the size of your arm. I mean, it's visually impressive. What would you say is some aspect of it that you're looking to improve next year?
Just the soil structure in the beds, I would say, is the main thing. We used a lot of the native soil that we have down there, and wood were the two main things that went into it. Our native soil is very rocky and very clay-like, so it's not the easiest to work. So our goal over the course of the fall and into the winter and even into the spring is going to be just continually adding layers of mulch to these beds and get the organic matter built up in there, get mycelium networks built up in there, get microbiology built up in there. All of this through permaculture practices. We're going to be doing some mushroom logs and some different things. So yeah, it's going to be fun throughout the winter. I'm looking forward to having some downtime from farming and concentrate on building the beds and getting everything looking really good.
Yeah, right. I think everybody's like excited for and looking forward to harvest, to at least move on to different things, different tasks for the day. I was happy for you to see that you were able to do some food interplanting too, because part of the idea is that you've got your cannabis plants up top, but you're also running companion plants that are positively allelopathic with the cannabis, but also to grow some food, to reap, benefit from that as well. So how did that go?
It actually was a complete mistake this year.
Oh.
We were and are planting or planning on doing a bunch of polycultures and interplantings and making these beds just full of abundance.
Are you saying that was a volunteer? Those are volunteer plants?
Everything that came up underneath was volunteer out of our compost.
That's awesome, actually.
So it's all. We have pumpkin, squash. There's tobacco down there.
Wait, so it was everything that was in your compost that you then used to fill the Hugel culture that starts popping up.
Yeah, totally.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. You never know what's gonna come up out of there, but it's cool to see when it does.
Right on.
Yep.
So another one of your goals was going to be to use as many of the nutrients, both the raw nutrients, just so you're just throwing onto them in the soil, but also the inputs for your KNF ferments. You're going to try to source as much of that as possible right here on your acreage, so you can keep the circle tight.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It went pretty good. We did a lot of harvesting early in the year and preparing our FPJs and our FFJs. That'd be the fermented plant juice and fruit juices. And also we did some stuff for pesticides. We did a habanero FFJ. We did also our LABs with our goat milk. Let's see. That, and we did a little bit of the seawater, but beyond that we didn't get into much of the other KNF stuff, but that stuff we've got a pretty good hold on, and we're getting ready to move further on into the regimens and seeing what else we can do.
Even outside of the ferments, it seemed like you use a lot of the biomaterial that was on the property, like you turned me on to how rich forest duff is last time I was here, right? And so the more I look into it, the more like I realize that stuff is like soft magic,
Totally, yeah.
So you used a lot of that, and obviously you used a lot of brush, because it looks like you kept on, even after you dug the Hugel, you kept on putting stuff on there, and so the idea was for it to break down. So where did you source some of that stuff too?
We just around anywhere we could. We got most of our forest stuff from just off of the Full Sun Flat and our Homestead Flat. A lot of the other stuff that went into the plant matter and the wood came from a PG&E extension that we're working on. We're bringing power to our place, and we had a lot of brush and tree clearing to do, and we were able to gather up all of that stuff and get it down there and get that stuff in there, and feeling really good about the ability to use that stuff up.
Right on. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for the tour this spring, because that was really not only exciting, but it was really inspiring, right, to see Hügelkultur deployed on that level. And thanks for having us back to take more pictures and to chat more about it.
Absolutely.
Right on. Thank you, brother. Right on.